Got an event here tonight with my friends at Americans for Prosperity. And since I'm here in Kansas, it seemed appropriate to welcome one of the U.S. senators from this state to join us on the show today. And Senator Jerry Moran, a Republican, was kind enough to agree. Senator, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, it's really good to be with you. And more importantly, let me welcome you to the state of Kansas, to Wichita in particular.
It's my first time in Wichita. I've been to Kansas a few times. I've been on the Kansas side in Kansas City. I've been to Lawrence for a basketball game. First time in Wichita, and everyone has been very, very nice. So thank you for the warm welcome. I want to talk on a somber note. It was a little eerie, frankly, flying into Wichita just because of the horrible tragedy back in January on that flight originating here in Wichita to Washington Reagan National Airport, that midair collision as that American Airlines plane was just about to land in D.C., and all of those fatalities, including so many young people. I remember seeing you on TV that night. You got to Reagan Airport as quickly as you could. It was just so awful and heart-wrenching for so many families, both here and in D.C. You have been, of course, watching the investigation like a hawk very closely. There have been hearings on this. As you see the results of some of these investigations, I've seen you quoted in the press. What are your impressions?
Well, you are absolutely right, and you did turn this to a somber moment. January the 29th is a really sad time for Kansans and Americans. The flight from Wichita nonstop to Washington Reagan a helicopter collided with that flight, and 67 people were killed, people on the helicopter, members of our military, as well as the traveling public citizens from across the country on that flight. I recruited that flight to Wichita, encouraged a nonstop flight to Washington, D.C. The economy of Wichita is growing in defense and space work. The aviation and aerospace industry is hugely important to the state of Kansas. It employs thousands of people, and we have a reason to be connected with Washington, D.C. And you're right, I was at the Reagan Airport, so I supported Sean Duffy's nomination to be the Secretary of Transportation, and the first time I saw him after he had been confirmed was at the airport that night, and he's been providing leadership as the Secretary of Transportation ever since. And the NTSB, the National Traffic Safety Board, has been investigating and, in my view, doing a great job of finding out the facts and analyzing what's going on. And what's been in the news this week is that the NTSB has public hearings which witnesses come, and they don't reach any conclusions from these hearings, but these experts and people in the field tell the NTSB their thoughts and what's going on. And my takeaway is that the FAA was made aware of near misses by the thousands over a long period of time, and little action was taken. There was reports of air traffic controllers suggesting that they needed more air traffic control services at the airport. It's one of the most congested and most complicated places to fly in and out of, in part because of the military and public entities that fly in and out of, in this case, the Pentagon or the forts in the neighborhood. And so my takeaway is that there were lots of warnings. I don't think that one thing contributed or caused the accident, but many things contributed to it. The altimeters didn't actually reflect the actual altitude of the aircraft, the helicopter in this case. Something called ASB out and in, while the Army had ASB out. It was not functioning apparently that night, or at least it wasn't turned on. But lo and behold, they discovered that none of those devices that allow a pilot to know what's near them or what's departing and what's coming in, they hadn't worked in months. And so just a lot of what I'd call negligence. And perhaps the most troublesome thing is when someone at the FAA suggested that they needed to reduce the number of flights in and out of Reagan. The answer back was, we can't go there, that's too political. Very discouraging. All of which to say is that there's a lot of things that happened and have continued to happen that were detrimental and certainly dramatically tragic on the night of January the 29th. But Sean Duffy at the Department of Transportation the new FAA administrator. I chair a subcommittee. Ironically, the Kansan chairs a subcommittee on aviation and space in the Commerce Committee, and we are fully engaged in trying to make certain that what has happened in the past comes to an end, and that safety is front and center. And that there's here's the excuse me for talking so long, but here's one that really stands out to me. 27 steps, according to NTSB, if you have a safety concern at the FAA, 27 steps to get it answered. And then if you get an answer, it comes back through the 27 different agencies and entities to confirm the decision. Bureaucracy, bureaucracy, bureaucracy.
Yeah, I mean, it's not streamlined at all. And then you've got this just ancient equipment as well in a lot of cases. And we've spoken to Secretary Duffy on this show as well. It's just stunning. Some of the antiquated, you can't even call it technology, the systems that they use still in a lot of these places. And I know a lot of this has been used as a political football and the finger pointing, and you can go back to the Biden team and Secretary Buttigieg, but I mean, this has been a problem now, I think, for years. And there have been exposés about this, New York Times, Washington Post, et cetera. America's system has been strained and aging for a long time, and it just seems like it just kept getting kind of, punted out further into the future and just hoping for the best that everything kind of would hold together with duct tape. And unfortunately, on that terrible night, like day 1 or 2 of Duffy's job since he was confirmed, this terrible accident occurred. And it just felt like, certainly in previous administrations, there were other priorities well beyond safety and efficiency and good technology. They had all this other stuff crowding it up and clouding the whole thing, and the result ultimately was deadly. Are you confident that rather than, a bunch of investigations and blue ribbon committees and all that stuff and rhetoric, are you confident that actions are being taken to make sure this risk is dramatically lessened and dealt with?
A couple of things that give me some assurance that that's the case. First and foremost are the family members and friends of those who lost their lives on that night. Parents, brothers, sisters, and they are active and fully committed to making certain that change comes from the loss of life that occurred on that date. And secondly, we're actually putting our money where our mouths are. Secretary Duffy is leading the effort. He has a $31.5 billion program to update the technology in the air traffic control towers and otherwise at the FAA and Department of Transportation. Congress in the reconciliation bill approved $12.5 billion of that fund, and our appropriations process, our normal appropriations process, added another $4 billion. So there is money that's headed toward Duffy's way, and there are many who are making certain that this is not something that happened and is soon forgotten. It's to be fixed.
On another matter, Senator, I just want to get your thoughts on this. I saw this graphic put out by Leader Thune, the Republican Senate Majority Leader. It's a graph showing the percentage of civilian nominees who are confirmed by voice vote or unanimous consent in the U.S. Senate. And in George H.W. Bush's case, it was 98%, Bill Clinton, 98%, George W. Bush, 90%, Barack Obama, 90%, Donald Trump's first term, 65%, Joe Biden's term, 57%. So it had been coming down, but still a majority. Trump's second term, this term, 0%. Zero. The Democrats have not allowed a voice vote or unanimous consent for any of them, so just dragging out the process. We have about a minute left. What do you think can and should be done about this? Because the obstruction here is unprecedented.
It is unprecedented. It's nothing that Democrats have done to Republican administrations before, and certainly nothing that Republicans did to Democratic administration. Unprecedented is true. And it's like the Senate has been so difficult to do its work because almost all we do, I could brag about a number of things that we've accomplished, reconciliation, rescission, etc., appropriation bills, but we're spending so much time waiting because of the need for a 2-hour wait between a vote on cloture and a vote on confirmation. And so the Democrats are dragging out the entire business of the Senate day after day after day. I say this with jokingly, smile on my face. When I was a little boy in Plainville, Kansas, dreamed of being a United States Senator, it was so I could go there and do nominations every day, every week, week after week. And it's annoying, and it's counterproductive to the well-being of the country. And the president deserves to have the people to surround him that he's nominated. I think we were looking. The president tried to negotiate with Chuck Schumer late last week during the weekend, unsuccessful in finding a common solution to the problem. And I think that was intentional on the part of the Democrats.
Yeah,
they really weren't.
It looks like some
one.
hardball tactics from the Republicans are probably in order here and might come in pretty short order. Senator Jerry Moran of Kansas, our guest on the Guy Benson Show. Senator, thank you.
Thank you, Guy.
We'll be right back after this.